Now, we got to talk. We got to talk. Because in the last couple of days, there have been the trade deadline is obviously Friday, and some teams like to get a jump start on that. Now, we're going to talk about another deal that happened that was weird, but the two main trades we have to talk about involve the Leafs' biggest competitors right now, biggest rivals right now. So the Florida Panthers, first things first. Seth Jones gets traded to the Florida Panthers. I think the Blackhawks are retaining $2.5 million on the rest of that deal, which is huge for them. Or for the Panthers. Panthers send back goaltender Spencer Knight, who, very good goaltending prospect, should be a good goalie for Chicago. He had a fantastic start in his first outing with the Blackhawks. I believe that was against LA, and a first-round pick. That immediately makes the Panthers D-court a lot better. Now you have, so the top pair is probably still Forsling Ekblad, and then the second pair is probably Mikkola Jones. That's nasty. And Jones gives them a little bit more offense from the back end. I view him more as like a Montour replacement with a little bit more physical edge, maybe a pinch worse defensively. But look, Jones has been a minute eater on a terrible Chicago team for years, and he has flaws. There's the whole thing about teams targeting him on zone entries because his agility isn't very good and he likes to sag off the blue line a little bit more. But Seth Jones is really, really, really freaking good. So that's a problem. And that top four for the Panthers is going to be very difficult to deal with. Then, so this morning, I wake up and I'm like, today would be a great day for the Leafs to trade for Yanni Gourde. And naturally, I look at my phone, and Yanni Gourde and Oliver Bjorkstrand are heading to the Tampa Bay Lightning in exchange for 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, and forward Mikey Eyssimont. Kill me. Dude. Oh, my Lord. I was so mad. And look, is it an overpay? Probably. That's an overpay. I mean, Bjorkstrand is signed through next year. He's a very good forward. He's going to be very good. That second line right wing spot for the Lightning. Not looking forward to dealing with him in the playoffs if the Leafs have to. Yanni Gourde, he'll probably be the third line center. I don't know. Between him and Nick Paul, you'll figure it out, the third line for Tampa. I hate that because the thing about Tampa for most of the year is they have been one of the most egregious one-line teams in the league. The top line for Tampa, like they're big players, so Kucherov, Point, Hagel, they account for a higher percentage of their team's goals than anyone. And now Tampa just addressed their depth in a major way. And maybe they're not done. I don't know, even if that is what they do, and that's their only deadline move. That instantly, to me, makes them the favorites in the East. In a season where there's not really a clear cup contender or a clear-cut favorite in the East, I know Washington's had a good regular season. Washington also has the highest team shooting percentage of the Cap era, so that's not sustainable. So I kind of have them pegged as a disappointment candidate for the playoffs. There's a very high likelihood that for the 6th straight year, the Cup finalist comes out of the state of Florida. So that's not ideal. Then I'll briefly mention this other trade that happened during the game. The Pittsburgh Penguins trade Michael Bunting to the Nashville Predators for Luke Schenn, and who else did they get? It was Luke Schenn and someone. I should probably have checked this beforehand. Forgive me. Oh, where did this go, man? Hold on. I have to find the trade now. I lost it. Luke Schenn and Tommy Novak. Now, why on earth the Penguins are doing this, I don't know. The Predators trading Luke Schenn and Tommy Novak, sure, that makes sense. For Michael Bunting, maybe less sense, but I mean, Bunting is a good middle six winger. He could be a really good third liner for Nashville. I fully expect Pittsburgh to flip Shen, probably Novak too. It would not make sense for the Penguins to hold on to Shen. So I don't know if Shen's going to be a Leaf. I would like it if Luke Shen was a Leaf. But Matthew's saying Robertson to the Penguins for Shen. I wouldn't do that. I know Robertson had a tough game against San Jose, tough game tonight. I would like to hold on to Robertson unless you are trading him for a forward upgrade. If you're looking at the Islanders and you're trying to trade for Brock Nelson and they want Robertson in that deal, sure, do it. But if not, I'm perfectly content to hold on to him. Robertson can be your 13th forward, so if and when there's an injury in the playoffs, Robertson can draw in and give you some scoring punch on the third line, as long as you insulate him with defensively responsible line mates. And then next year he's going to be cheap and he could possibly score 20 goals. He's effective scoring depth, and he's been improving defensively, and he's been improving on the forecheck. I would like to hold on to that player, again, unless it's for a clear forward upgrade. Now, with those trades, the Leafs are squarely the third best team in the Atlantic at this point, and we still don't know what they're going to do at the deadline. There have been rumors, obviously, about Braden Shen. Darren Dreger said that it might cost... Dreger speculated that it might cost all of Minton, Danforth, Cowan, and possibly more, and that might not even be enough. That is ridiculous, and I want to caution anyone against listening to that too intensely, because Darren Dreger is obviously, the Blues are talking through him, right? Darren Dreger is known, and some of these insiders are just known to carry water for the people who feed them information. It will not cost all of the Leafs' best prospects and a first-round pick to get Braden Shen, all right? But the Leafs might not be willing to meet it. It would probably cost a first and one of those guys, and you have to ship Max Domi out the other way to make the salary work. The Leafs might not be willing to do that. That's fine. Braden Shen, I don't view him that highly, but the overarching theme right now, we have no idea what the Leafs are going to do, and it might be nothing. And Brad Treliving, the ball is in your court. So the Leafs have been linked to Braden Shen, to Brock Nelson. They were linked to Yanni Gourde, but then as soon as he was traded to the Lightning, some of the insiders were saying that wasn't realistic. The Leafs weren't serious about that. It kind of seems like Yanni Gourde was the Leafs' break glass in case of emergency option, and now he's gone. So Braden Shen, Brock Nelson, Scott Laughton, those are the three names that we most commonly hear associated with the Leafs. Brock Nelson is a very good player. Braden Shen is a fine player on a horrifying contract. Scott Laughton is a fine player, not a center, and not worth a first-round pick. But what are you going to do? So now the Leafs have, and this is squarely on management, they have gotten themselves into a situation where they are too scared to make a big addition and to part with their prospects and picks, and that is squarely on Brendan Shanahan, because Brad Treliving has only been here for so long, and it's not like Craig Berube is making the trades. It's Brendan Shanahan. Brendan Shanahan is terrified to make trades because he is so scared of repeating the Kadri trade, repeating the Nick Foligno trade that didn't work out, right? Where they trade a first and a fourth for Foligno, and he gets hurt, and he's not effective. He's a bad fourth liner for them. Shit happens, right? They emotionally trade Nazem Kadri, and that trade is a disaster. And those moves have scared Brendan Shanahan from approving anything. But at the same time, Brendan Shanahan also has got to win at least a playoff round to keep his job. Keith Pelly, who is the CEO of MLSE, I believe, he's Brendan Shanahan's boss. And if the Leafs lose in the first round again, all onus will be on Shanahan. You have fired 3 general managers at this point. You have fired multiple head coaches at this point with this core. At what point is Shanahan's job the one that goes next? So he is in a tricky spot where he has to go all in on this year because A, the Leafs have a chance to win the Atlantic, something they haven't done since like the 90s. I know they won the Canadian division, not the same, and they choked that anyways. The difference between playing Florida, Tampa Bay, or Detroit, Columbus, Ottawa, whomever, massive difference. And granted, I don't want to play the Rangers, but the Leafs have to do something. They have to. You cannot just sit on your hands and do nothing. Because if you do, you are conceding that you don't believe in this team this year, that you are punting on your best opportunity to win the division, and that you're conceding that Florida and Tampa are better than you. And if that happens, we're going to hear, oh, the division is really tough. And we really believed in this team regardless. We thought we had the right guys at the back. No, it's BS. Don't listen to it. Don't let the Leafs gaslight you. If they do not make a move this deadline, and a meaningful move, I mean, like if you trade for a 7th defenseman, I don't care. If the Leafs do not make a serious move, that is a complete failure of management. If Brendan Shanahan, Brad Treliving, and everyone else in the front office fail to make a move to keep them competitive with Florida and Tampa Bay, that is a failure of management. Austin Matthews came out today and he said, when you see other teams adding, you want to see an ad. Julien Brisebois, the general manager of the Tampa Bay Lightning, after trading 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick, 3 premium draft picks for Oliver Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gourde. You know what he said? It's better to try and fail than it is to do nothing. I'm paraphrasing, but his point is you will regret it less if you try and fail than if you don't try at all. So if the Leafs, let's say they don't do anything meaningful, they go into the first round, they lose the division to Florida, they play Tampa Bay in the first round, and they lose that series. That will be a more regrettable action than if they make a meaningful, let's say they trade for Brayden Schenn, they pony up for him, and they lose in the first round anyways. At least you tried. At least you gave an ounce of caring, an ounce of belief in this team. If you do, I will scream it from the rooftops. You have to try. And if you want to sit here and say that the right trades weren't available, that is also a failure of management. Look, if you're like, this is a team that had a fake general manager search. We knew the entire time Brad Treliving was the only guy they were seriously considering for GM. They had a fake head coaching search. We knew before before the playoffs, we knew Craig Berube would be the next coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs if the Leafs lost in the first round, which they did. So a team that had a fake general manager search and a fake head coaching search, it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that they have had a completely fake evaluation process of the trade deadline options, and they have only been focusing on Brayden Schenn. What have we heard the entire time? Brayden Schenn's their top option. Brayden Schenn's the top option. Brayden Schenn's the top option. Yeah, they're linked to these other guys. They're linked to Mikko Rantanen. They're linked to Brock Nelson. They're linked to Scott Laughton. Those have never been their top options. They want Brayden Schenn. And the Blues are gaslighting everyone into thinking he's this premium asset. So now the Leafs are in a position where you're either going to pony up for him or you're not. And if you don't, you're probably going to end up with nothing. Seems like Brock Nelson is either getting extended by the Islanders or getting traded to Winnipeg. Good for the Jets. He's a very good player. He'll fit in well there. Scott Laughton, they want a first-round pick for him. That's not what Scott Laughton's worth, but someone will probably pony up for him. So what? If you don't get Schenn, what? Now, if I'm sitting back here, there's 2 options. One, the less preferable option to me, is you go to Philadelphia and you try to get a D and a forward from them. Now, that would likely be Scott Laughton and Rasmus Ristolainen. Ristolainen is the antithesis of an analytics darling. He has been the just laughing stock of the analytics community for years, but he has gotten better in Philadelphia. I think he can be a solid fourth defenseman. He's also on a terrible contract, so you have to get retention. Lawton is not a center, as I said, and you have to ship out Domi to make the money work. So then you're left with either Lawton or Yarncrook playing center, which is not ideal. Or, what I would do, the Seattle Kraken have indicated that Jared McCann could be available. The New York Islanders, if they do become sellers and sell Brock Nelson, they might be inclined to sell someone else. I would want, of the options that are out there, my top two targets right now, if he's available, Jared McCann. If he's not, Jean-Gabriel Pageau from the Islanders. Those are legitimately good third-line centers that are good at both ends of the ice, and you can seriously win with them. And if Tavares gets hurt or Matthews gets hurt, both of those guys can be competent top six centers. I would also pair that with a I'm a big fan of Connor Murphy in Chicago. He doesn't defend the line that well, but he's big, physical, good in front of the net, good at stopping a cycle. He can pair well with Morgan Riley. That's what I would do. One of McCann or Pageau and Connor Murphy. Make the money work. Trade Domi, trade Dewar, waive Reeves. I don't care. Make it work. That being said, the Leafs are not going to do that because that would require getting a little creative with the cap, and also it would require Brad Treliving admitting he made a mistake with Max Domi, which he'll never do. He'll never do because general managers, especially Brad Treliving, very stubborn. And Brad Treliving is also notorious for not being active at the trade deadline. For years in Calgary, he would sit on his hands. That might be Calgary's upper management too. It's very possible. But he didn't do anything for them. Last year at the deadline, what did he do? He traded for Lyubushkin. Okay. It was all depth guys. So, I think that this team can win the division. Especially when Chris Tanev comes back and the defense figures itself out. I also think this is the most vulnerable the East has been in years. If there was ever a year for the Leafs to do damage in the playoffs, it would be this year, which is perfect because this is also the year they absolutely have to do damage in the playoffs. Anything short of a conference finals appearance will be viewed as a failure. And if you lose in the first round again, Mitch Marner is walking for nothing. So, what are you going to do? Ball's in your court, Brad.